The law of value remains valid under socialism only to the extent that there is commodity circulation, exchange through purchase and sale. Only in the sphere of commodity circulation, the law of value and under socialism retains, within certain limits, the role of the regulator. These limits, and thus the degree of influence of the law of value as a regulator within the sphere of commodity circulation, are different due to the fact that this sphere itself is far from homogeneous. The sphere of commodity circulation includes 1. Procurement of agricultural products of collective farm production, 2. Retail state and cooperative trade, and 3. Collective farm trade. Procurements of agricultural products of collective farm production belong to the sphere of commodity circulation, because here the products of labor are transferred from the ownership of collective farms and collective farmers to the ownership of the state through purchase and sale. Harvested agricultural products represent certain types of means of production and consumer goods, meat, milk, vegetables, fruits, etc. The buyer here is the state and, on its behalf, the corporation. Consumers of the means of production in socialist society are almost exclusively socialist enterprises. Agricultural procurement is a method of planned concentration of agricultural products in the hands of the state in the order of purchase and sale for subsequent distribution among enterprises in order to be used as raw materials or for sale to the population through the retail trade network. The distribution of agricultural raw materials, as well as of other means of production, is not regulated by the law of value. All this determines very narrow boundaries of the impact of the law of value in this area of commodity circulation. Stalin proved the complete inconsistency of the assertion that the law of value regulates procurement prices for agricultural raw materials. There is no such regulatory impact and cannot be because 1. The prices for raw materials are set by the state in a planned manner, and although the state takes into account the cost, the level of procurement prices does not determine the size and composition of the blanks. 2. The size of the production of agricultural raw materials is not determined by the elements of the market and not by any random moments, but are established in a planned manner, based on the needs of society and available opportunities. 3. The instruments of production necessary for the production of agricultural raw materials are concentrated in the hands of the state. Not being a regulator of prices for agricultural raw materials, the law of value at the same time affects the formation of these prices, is one of the factors of pricing. In setting the prices of goods in a planned manner, the Soviet state takes into account the requirements of the law of value. This means, for example, that the price per ton of cotton must be higher than the price per ton of grain, since cotton is labor-intensive. Likewise, the price per ton of baked bread should be higher than the price per ton of grain due to the added cost of grinding and baking. This is the case with the operation of the law of value in the field of agricultural procurement. In the sphere of state and cooperative retail trade, the law of value is, within certain limits, a regulator, because individual citizens and collective farms act as buyers of goods here. Through the channels of retail trade, the products of labor in the order of sale and purchase are transferred from the property of the state and cooperation to the personal property of citizens or to the public, group property of collective farms. However, even in this area in socialist society there is no free play of prices. The role of the law of value as a regulator in this area is limited by the fact that the suppliers of goods are mainly United Socialist producers, and the size of the constantly growing effective demand of the population depends mainly on the deployment of production at socialist enterprises. Socialist production is not regulated by the law of value. The socialist state, with its huge masses of commodities, is able to ensure the stability of the prices set by the state. The action of the law of value as a regulator manifests itself with the greatest force in collective farm trade. Individual citizens and collective farms act as sellers and buyers here. As you know, this trade is carried out at prices prevailing in the market. However, the collective farm market is only an addition to the state and cooperative retail trade. It does not play a decisive role in meeting the needs of the population. The prices of the collective farm market are guided by the prices of state and cooperative trade. Thanks to all this, the operation of the law of value in the sphere of collective farm trade is also placed within a certain framework and limited. What is the regulating role of the law of value expressed in the sphere of commodity circulation? Under socialism, there is no such spontaneous pricing as under capitalism, but the relationship between the amount of goods entering circulation, the size of the population's monetary income, the money supply in circulation and commodity prices cannot be arbitrary. When planning retail trade, money circulation and money income of the population and setting retail prices, the state must take into account the real possibilities of production, the ratio of supply and demand, must reckon with the cost of goods, determined by the socially necessary labor costs for their production, with the objective laws of money circulation. The regulatory influence of the law of value on the prices of goods is manifested in the need to establish certain ratios of retail prices for different goods and such a general level of retail prices that corresponds to the socially necessary labor costs for the production of goods. In other words, the regulating action of the law of value in the sphere of commodity circulation is that retail prices should be guided by the value of goods. This circumstance in no way excludes the possibility and necessity of price deviations from the value of goods. The socialist state systematically sets lower retail prices for some goods and relatively higher prices for other goods, taking into account the economic possibilities and the national economic efficiency of the production of various goods. This regulates the demand for goods and influences the structure of consumption. However, the possibilities of the state in the field of pricing are objectively limited by the operation of the law of value. Insufficient supply of goods at a given level and structure of effective demand of the population, the import of goods without taking into account the demand, incorrect setting of prices, the release of money into circulation in excess of the real needs of economic circulation in money can disorganize commodity circulation, weaken its role as a form of economic connection between the city and the village as a way to bring goods to consumers, taking into account their tastes and needs as much as possible. The impact of the law of value on socialist production. Use of forms of value. Not being a regulator of socialist production, the law of value, however, has an impact on it, which must be taken into account when managing production. Let's consider some aspects of this impact. To cover the costs of labor in the production process, you need consumer products, items of personal consumption. These products are produced as goods, transferred from the sphere of production to the sphere of consumption through purchase and sale, that is, using commodity circulation, which is subject to the law of value. As a result, socialist society must calculate and pay wages in value form and, in value form, exercise control over the measure of labor and the measure of consumption. But wages are only one of the elements of socialist production costs. The cost accounting of this element of costs requires the application of the same accounting for all other elements of production costs. All this means that under socialism the amount of living and materialized labor expended on the production of products is, of necessity, measured not directly by the amount of time spent on the production of products, but in a roundabout way, through the medium of value. In this regard, questions about the level and composition of the cost of production, about the ratio of labor productivity and wages, about the level and structure of prices for all products of socialist production are of very topical importance for socialist society. Wages determine the share of workers and employees in the social product entering personal consumption through commodity circulation. The higher the wage fund, the greater the effective demand of the population. Therefore, when establishing the wage fund, one cannot ignore the possibilities of producing and selling goods for personal consumption, with the operation of the law of value, to a certain extent, as a regulator in the sphere of commodity circulation. On the other hand, when planning the dynamics of real wages, it is necessary to take into account the level and dynamics of retail prices, which are under the regulatory influence of the law of value. The operation of the law of planned development of the national economy and national economic planning provide the highest form of lasting and constant profitability not from the point of view of individual enterprises or branches of production, but from the point of view of the entire national economy and in the context of many years. This is one of the main reasons for the crisis-free development of our national economy, its continuous growth at high rates. This form of profitability is inconceivable in a capitalist economy, the development of which is subordinated to the selfish interests of the owners of the means of production, the exploiters. Such a higher form of profitability can take place only under conditions when, on the basis of public ownership of the means of production, labor has become directly social. However, this in no way eliminates the need for and does not diminish the importance of taking into account the profitability of individual enterprises and industries, which is expressed in reducing the cost of production and in increasing the profits of enterprises and industries. The growth in the profitability of individual enterprises and branches of production is very important as a source of national economic accumulations and as an indirect indicator of an increase in the efficiency of the use of material, labor and monetary resources. This profitability must be taken into account when planning production and construction. But planning and accounting for the profitability of individual enterprises and industries necessarily requires the use of value, taking into account the impact of the law of value on production. In the struggle for the fulfillment and overfulfillment of plans, for an increase in the profitability of enterprises and branches of production, the socialist method of management, cost accounting, is of the greatest importance. It puts the income and expenses of each enterprise in direct dependence on the efficiency of the enterprise's use of the resources allocated at its disposal, on the degree of fulfillment of the established planned targets, therefore, on the quality and results of the enterprise. Self-financing increases the interest of each enterprise in reducing the cost of living and materialized labor per unit of output, in fulfilling and overfulfilling plans. At the same time, cost accounting provides each enterprise with ample opportunities to achieve overfulfillment of plans and reduce costs through better use of their resources, the manifestation of economic initiative. Thanks to all this, cost accounting is an effective lever in the struggle to reduce the cost of production, for our mode of economy. But economic calculation is inextricably linked with taking into account the operation of the law of value, with the use of value and its forms, with the cost commensuration of costs and the results obtained. It requires careful calculation of costs, correct organization of settlements between enterprises, precise determination of the profitability of each enterprise, systematic verification of the work of enterprises, and daily ruble control. This, as Stalin wrote, educates our business executives in the spirit of rational production and disciplines them, teaches them to count production values, count them exactly and take into account real things in production in the same way, look for, find and use hidden reserves hidden in the depths of production, reduce the cost of production, to carry out cost accounting and to achieve the profitability of enterprises. Socialist society cannot do without the use of forms of value, and this use goes beyond the boundaries of the sphere of circulation, where the law of value is to a certain extent a regulator. This is the basis of the ruble's control over the production and distribution of the social product. This is the basis of the financial and economic side of production, the activities of the Soviet system of finance and credit, which perform important functions in socialist reproduction. Trade is and will remain the main form of distribution of consumer goods among members of socialist society. Under socialism, Soviet trade plays a major role in meeting the individual needs of citizens. The expansion of Soviet trade and the improvement of its forms constitute a necessary condition for a steady rise in the well-being of the working people. The Communist Party shows exceptional concern for expanding the volume of retail trade, improving the range and quality of goods, reducing retail prices for food and industrial goods, and introducing the skills of Soviet cultural trade. The directives of the 19th Party Congress on the Fifth Five-Year Plan provided for an increase in the retail turnover of state and cooperative trade in 1951 to 1955 by about 70%. The Communist Party and the Soviet government put forward the task of fulfilling this task already in 1954. Commodity production and commodity circulation are successfully used by the Soviet state for the development of the socialist economy, and will bring unquestionable benefit to socialist society. They serve to strengthen economic ties between town and country, consistently implement the socialist principle from each according to his ability, to each according to his work, and stimulate the further growth of industrial and agricultural production. The main task in the field of agriculture, as indicated in the directives of the 19th Party Congress on the Fifth Five-Year Plan, is to increase the yield of all agricultural crops, to further increase the social livestock population with a simultaneous significant increase in its productivity, to increase the gross and marketable output of agriculture and animal husbandry. One of the most important ways of solving this problem is the further strengthening and development of the social economy of the collective farms. The possibilities for the rapid development of the productive forces inherent in the collective farm form of socialist production will expand more and more as the organizational and economic strengthening of the collective farms and the development of their social economy. The party and the Soviet state are taking all measures to maximize the further organizational and economic strengthening of the collective farms. But at the same time, one cannot fail to take into account that collective farm and group ownership and the resulting commodity circulation in the future are incompatible with communism, with the transition to the communist principle from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Commodity circulation means that the exchange of products of socialist industry for products of collective farm production falls into two independent acts: the sale of products by collective farms for money and the subsequent purchase of industrial products by collective farms and collective farmers also for money. In contrast, in the future, the question will arise of the direct exchange of products of socialist industry for products of collective farm production, that is, of the practical implementation of product exchange. However, this issue requires not only appropriate study and development. The most important condition here is the rapid growth of the output of socialist industry. An extensive system of product exchange, in which the collective farms will receive for their products not only money, but mainly the products they need, will require an enormous increase in the output of the city to the countryside. The development and improvement of Soviet trade is also of particular importance. Back in 1927, Stalin pointed out that before abandoning the use of money, it is necessary to establish such a transmission-distribution apparatus between town and country, which would be able to take into account and satisfy the needs of the town and village of the whole country, just as every person takes in your budget your expenses and incomes. Without the establishment of such an apparatus, it is impossible to abandon the use of sale and purchase, from money circulation, which provide the population with the opportunity to choose goods according to the tastes and needs of everyone. But this apparatus can be adjusted only through the further development of Soviet trade and procurement, improvement of the Soviet trade and procurement apparatus. The development of Soviet trade and the improvement of its forms and methods are the most urgent tasks of communist construction. Commodity production with its money economy will disappear as an unnecessary element of the national economy when, instead of two main production sectors, state and collective farm, there will be one all-embracing production sector with the right to dispose of all the country's products. And together with the disappearance of commodity production, the conditions requiring the use of forms of value will disappear. The law of value will lose its force. Marxist-Leninist theses on the nature and fate of commodity production under socialism are directly related to the most urgent tasks of communist construction, are very important in solving practical problems of the gradual transition from socialism to communism, equip scientists and business executives with a deep understanding of the conditions and tasks of using the law of value and forms of value in the struggle for the victory of communism.